for valuable contribution in the field of education. He is one of the outstanding intellectuals of 21st century, awarded by International Biographical Center, Cambridge University, and he has also received International Plateau Award also from the Cambridge University. So I would now like to welcome Professor R.P. Singh. Sir, please, over to you.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon. Being the last speaker in the panel and also of the 2-day celebration of deliberation, the first day, am I audible and visible?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm both at the point of advantage and also disadvantage. So the disadvantage is that my, fellow speakers, Professor Balramji and the inaugural speaker, they already have exhausted the, most of the areas. Particularly with Balramji, the problem is that whenever he takes up any topic, he just exhausts it, and hardly there is anything left for anybody else to make a reflection. So, but I'm also at the point of advantage because I can take up some of the, gaps and some of the footnotes which are left, and I will try to bridge the gap up, whatever is the, and to what extent it is possible. So in the beginning, I would like to congratulate and also thank the organizers, particularly Shobhaji, Sunitaji, Pankajji, and others who tried it. And in fact, Sunitaji contacted me a few days back, and she was having this idea, and we thought that let us have it. And at least it could be a brainstorming session. It could be a kind of test of ideas and test of all kinds of infrastructure that we have, and see what kind of a crisis is there, challenges are there, and also how can we respond to it. So this is how it started, and now here we are. And in my case, actually, I've been doing the virtual teaching, learning, and even assessment also for quite some time. And I remember in 2004, I had a PhD Viva done on Skype in GNU for the first time. I took a special permission from the Vice Chancellor that time because my student was not available, was not able to come to India. She was in Kyrgyzstan. And so I did it, and it was done very successfully. And last year, we had a lot of disturbance on the campus, and university asked us to go to virtual kind of a thing. But we tried, but we could not succeed much. But this time it has come up in a very, challenging way before us. So, and that also because of this, lockdowns, which created, and suspension of classes and presentations, seminars, etc. since March 13th to 2020. So university is almost shut. Students were asked to vacate the hostels, go back to their homes or some places where they can live safely. And so we thought that let us have some kind of, virtual interaction with the students, because they are young, they are youth, they are the future of the country, and their time should always be, made utilized properly. So I started sending them some materials, class notes, PPTs, etc. And I got some feedback from few students, but it was not substantive. Then again, after a week, I contacted them if we can meet on Skype or Google Meet or Zoom, and we can, discuss the issues. And they were all ready, completely ready for that. So I classify these issues into, some of the stages like PhD students. They have no problems at all. They're writing their thesis, they write, send it to me, I discuss with them, they modify it, develop it, again submit it, and it's getting done very well. MPhil research scholars, those who are doing the coursework, there is also absolutely no problems with them. They are also interacting. At the MA level, 70 to 75% students have access to internet and all that. But at the undergraduate level, there are some problems, but still people are receiving the emails, WhatsApp messages, and sending their queries, questions, etc. And uh, and I hope that something is done even in the primary, secondary, and higher secondary levels. Also, people are trying, but I have no access to it, no information with me. So this is the real situation which started, from 13th March 2020, and we started moving ahead. Now, as far crisis is concerned, let me spell out what are really the points of or the bullet points for the crisis. Where is really the crisis? The crisis is of the vision, that how to see the future. Balramji also pointed out that our main concern is to look the prospects. Do not become so nostalgic about it, looking at the past only, because we cannot go to the past. We can only, take inspiration from the past, but we have to be, some kind of, utopian, with some kind of hope, some kind of prospects. But what are those prospects? What is the political will that we have at hand? What are the economic incentives and technological support to execute those prospective ideas and program of action? This has to be materialized in a very systematic manner. And the global dimension of COVID-19 particularly is getting responded by, as we can see in India, it happens, by deglobalizing it. Deglobalizing in the sense of, canceling the, flights and canceling the orders, import and export orders, and so many actions which are being taken up at the national level, so that we can deglobalize it. We have to see this antinomy, the globalization and deglobalization, how can they work? And also the crisis is of economic crisis. We are going to face, and we have already started facing it, great economic depression, perhaps for the first time in the whole world. And unemployment, uncertainties, worries, panic, all these challenges, crisis, things are there before us. So we need some kind of philosophical and moral concepts to facilitate all these issues and see how it can be managed about. Now, corona crisis or coronavirus which came to India, and it created some kind of, what is called test of certain ideas, values, and commitments. So it is simply a time of test. This coronavirus is a time of test. It is a test of medical capacity in terms of kits, from kits to the ventilators, the quarantine facilities, the sanitizers, etc. It is also a test of political will, administrative, economic, and military capabilities. Everything is getting tested these days. It is also a test between faith and trust. Where are we going to place our faith into? In the temples, mosques, and gurudwaras, or something of the kind? Or we are going to have a trust in the government, in the citizens, in the media, in the economy? So these are the issues which have to be tested again. It is also a test of the culture in which we are all living. In fact, Balramji also raised this question that it's a test of the consumer culture. It could be a test for the nationalist culture. And what Balramji has suggested is that basically it is the time for testing the sustainable development. How can public, private, individual, they can participate together along with care for the environment, ecology, and overall well-being, not only of the humanity, but of all the sentient beings. Yesterday, in fact, we had Buddha Jayanti, and Buddha, in fact, he talked about compassion, which was for the not only human beings, but also all the sentient beings. So compassion is to be tested. Sacrifice is a new term which has come up, with COVID barriers. So now, earlier, patriarchs used to give the sacrifice, the religious people used to give sacrifice, even the common people, they used to give sacrifice, but now it's a new kind of a sacrifice which has come up before us. We have to address all these things. So corresponding, in taking up all these things, we have to test our ideas, values, ways of life, social relationships, of touching and getting touched. This phenomenon is something which has come up, very substantially, touching and getting touched. So whether we are physically touching anybody or getting touched, or socially or intellectually, morally, in various ways, it can be linguistically, it could be language also, it touches us and we get touched about it. And food habits, etc. These are some of the tests that that has to be retested in the context of the coronavirus. Now, what are the basic questions that we address in general and particularly with education? Now, in general, philosophically, it happens that we need to search for new universals, because the problem is global and it requires some kind of global solution or universal solution. So what could be those universals? Fresh and all-encompassing. Second thing, does democracy work better than dictatorship during the moment of crisis? So it's a high time to test this idea at present. And with virtual world, which can shape the public opinion in a substantive manner. So will dictatorship serve better, or the democracy? And then, do we need faith or interfaith to sustain our life, or science and medical science is good enough to give a kind of support and sustenance to our existence? In education particularly, it happens that the basic questions are: is virtual education and learning inevitable? Are we at this stage? Most of our resources are available online, or we look for the things to come online and then we'll make use of it, because it is cost effective, it is easily available, and we can manage it, incorporate it, and of course all kinds of value issues like plagiarism and all that has to be taken care. Second thing is that, do we have enough infrastructure to maintain physical distancing, uninterrupted power supply, internet facilities with speed, smartphones, laptops, etc.? Because in the universities, the problem is that students live in the hostels, sometimes double-seated, triple-seated. They eat in the mess. They study in the classrooms. Classrooms are also sometimes very compact. They go to the library where space is a problem. So do we have all these things, or we can make the education valuable, available on internet virtually, and they can sit anywhere and have full access to it with physical distancing? Because physical distancing will remain for quite some time. And what I have talked to some of my medical professionals, they have said that it will go for at least 2 years. So we have to be very ready. At least we have to prepare in terms of our vision and prospects. Now, the third thing is how to measure and manage the degree of intersubjectivity in virtual education and pattern of education. This is really a challenging task, and Professor Saluja has also, in fact, developed it. Shobhaji also talked about it, that how to assess it, because whenever we go to classrooms, we develop our intersubjectivity between the teacher and the student, and it is the intersubjectivity which is constantly evaluated and re-evaluated, that how much the student has developed. We have a pattern of evaluation, that we teach 1 month, take a sessional, then another 1 month teaching, another sessional, and then there is end semester examination. So it is called cumulative way of evaluating the students, and that all depends on our intersubjectivity, that how much the student is interacting in the classroom, is sincere, is finishing the jobs in time, whatever assignment is given. So all these things, how can it be done virtually? Earlier we were doing it in the classrooms, but now we have to move towards virtual. And this semester I have done it. I have finished the second sessional also online, and I found that it has done very comfortably. In fact, my MPhil students were more happy sitting at home and interacting for 2 hour classroom. and raising the questions and sending through emails and WhatsApps, and I'm responding to them. So it is giving us. But still, the human face-to-face interaction is something which will be missing. I recall what Professor Balramji has said, that when the printing came up in the 15th century, then that was also a challenge. How to go about Shruti Parampara now? Let the books teach us, and author could be simply a scripter before us. So these are some of the very basic questions, foundational questions, on which I have some little bit reflection on it. So these are the questions. Now, in the next slide, I have placed the conceptual clarification of it. This slide is a little important one, rather I think most important one. Here I have placed it into first the degree of this COVID-19, then what is the level of it, what are the judgments that we can make, and what are the concepts that we can utilize here. Now, so far as the degree is concerned, there are 3 degrees of any kind of, virus which comes up, including coronavirus. So in the beginning, now as coronavirus, COVID-19, it has become pandemic. It is universal. It is global. It is now everywhere. But initially, it was some kind of an epidemic. So it was focused to certain regional level. And much before that, it was simply endemic, confined to some kind of a particular place. So if I spell it out, then the level of pandemic is global, and the level of epidemic or epidemic is something which is regional, and the level of endemic is something which is local. It could be hospital, it could be a tribal community, or it could be something which is called a green zone, all kinds of things, red zone and all that stuff. Now the judgments which we make about it, those judgments are either universal or particular or singular. In case of pandemic, it is universal. So we need certain concepts which are very universal. We need certain concepts which are very particular, and certain concepts which are singular, because there are certain exceptional patients. Even today the news came that one patient was for 30 days he was on ventilator, and today he came out and he started walking. That was a miracle kind of a thing. That was singular instance. But then we have particular instances where many people were treated, but and many people became all right, but some people lost their lives. And something which is universal is to be addressed. Now here, the concept which we can analyze, that is, in case of pandemics, it could be the unity concept, that everybody should go. If it is a lockdown, we have to show the solidarity, we have to show the unity. And in case of epidemic, plurality. Certain facilities could be given, certain, things could be released, and, certain lockdown could be released, and, facilities have to be given. And in the totality, that there are certain areas which are totally free from all kinds of things. So there, no such restrictions should go about it. So this is how we can classify it. And on this basis, I have only 2 more slides to present before you, and I will make certain judgments about it. Now, the response is that in terms of education, in the field of education, that indeed it is very complex phenomenon, as we all understand that education is not a simple thing. It is complex, and it is complex at many levels. It has various dimensions and various layers of complexities. We can see that in the higher secondary and the senior secondary schools, education, final examination is a big problem. Now they are fixing up another date that also still it is tentative only. But it has to be managed in view of the total situation which is happening, not only in India, but also globally, which is happening. So we need to have a virtual global intersubjectivity. So in terms of education and learning, online classes, study materials, discussions, presentations, webinars, even publications, dissemination of all these things, and all these things require the infrastructure, Everybody raised this kind of issue. It's indeed a big problem. Not only in India, it's a global problem, in fact. So everywhere, but somewhere it is more, somewhere it is less. And accessibility, duration, and the quality aspect of it. Now, there are certain perspectives which philosophers have taken to respond to all these issues of education, whether it is global or it is, virtual kind of a thing. And traditionally, we have got 4 such perspectives before us. And libertarians, utilitarians, communitarians, and Rawlsian. These are the 4 people who have responded to it. And among the libertarians, particularly, from John Locke to Immanuel Kant, the Enlightenment period, which tried to float individual at the center of everything, and then autonomy and dignity aspects were highlighted very substantially in the case of libertarians. But the individual life and the well-being of the other individuals is something which is at stake here, and it has to be addressed. So libertarians and maybe the neo-libertarians can help us to some extent, but the classical libertarians are not good enough to help us much. But some of the features like freedom, autonomy, and dignity has to be taken up for consideration. The second issue is about the utilitarians, and most of the issues are at stake among the utilitarians, but some of the points can be considered very seriously. And I remember J.S. Mill, who had said that I can never put money above people's lives, even if the money can give us maximum happiness. But people's life is something which is most important for us. So this is a wonderful kind of a thing. And the utilitarian calculus is not about balancing money and life. Let us never try to think in these terms, that money is to be saved and life is to be sacrificed. No. Utilitarians have always emphasized that life is more important. Life is supersedes the money aspect of it. But communitarians, they come up very substantially in view that they derive the concept of identity, from the broader community life, collective life, collective responsibility is something. And most of the countries, they are accepting now this kind of thing. Particularly in case of India, the communitarian lifestyle is something which is very substantially there, and we all have to respond to collective sentiments of the people. Egalitarians have created a lot of problems. We can see how it happens in China, and then it has been very problematic area about the egalitarians. So virtual thing, how will it work in an egalitarian society, is to be reassessed, and there are so many question marks to it. Rawlsian is the one which people are now accepting everywhere, and in fact the response to corona, the COVID-19, is also basically based on the Rawlsian model in a very modified manner, because Rawls himself modified his position time and again. The veil of ignorance, which is now classified into the 4 groups: the rich, the poor, the people who are between rich and poor, and the worst off. And is coronavirus the worst off? Because in this century alone, we already had around 3 such epidemics, rather pandemics. There was Ebola, there was SARS, and now this is the corona. And corona is perhaps the worst of all these things. So I remember there was a statement given by Pope Francis. He had said that we are all in the same boat. So the whole globe is in the same boat. So, and nobody is exceptional kind of a thing. So we have to take up this kind of approach to look at it, the Rawlsian approach, which now people are taking up very substantially. I'm sorry, there is a plane landing up, so there is some vibration. But now I come to the last slide, and this is how we as Indian are going to respond to it. So I've given certain things before you, and first, my experience over the last few weeks of lockdowns, which is very claustrophobic kind of a lockdown, but it has shown that there is a cultural unity despite so much of diversity in India. So India is so much diverse, and so much of civil society is there, ethnic identities are there, but still, when the call is given and media is also informing people, the virtual world is always there at help. It has shown a kind of a unique cultural unity before us. And this shows that in the moments of crisis, democracy works better than dictatorship. So we can always see that democratic participation with the participation of the, maybe the policymakers, the educationists, the students, this all works in a much better manner than dictatorship. Now we can form our moral judgments to guide personal and social behavior in terms of what is good, what is right and wrong for the nation as a whole or for the humanity as a whole. Because if we are imposing some kind of self-distancing, physical distancing, social distancing, how good it is, but virtual interaction is there. A new form of social interaction which has emerged, and we have to cope up with this kind of a challenge. Now the COVID barriers are performing their duties, what we call in philosophy as deontological orientation, duty for duty's sake. Or in the Bhagavad Gita, it is said, Nishkama Bhava, kind of an action. So keeping in view, it has both the individual commitment and also the communitarian sentiments. So there is an attempt to reconcile both the things. Now with physical distancing and virtual social interaction of touching and getting touched, we are now in a new moral order. So this has opened up a new epoch of human history. It's challenging, it has crisis, but I think with webinars and with classroom interactions and with all kinds of facilities which are available to us with nominal prices are almost free. Almost free. It has never been so. So I remember when Plato had said in the Republic that state is an educational institution. So it is the job of the state to look that the education is absolutely freely given to everybody. But for that, we need some kind of infrastructure, resources, and people ready for that, and people who are who can come forward and get trained, educated in the new way. And I think this is the only way that we can address the present problem. And my personal thing is that virtual education is something which has future. It is inevitable, and it is getting accepted by everybody. The only thing, the infrastructure has to be improved, and people's accessibility. The hierarchy in the education will also one day disappear, and it will become a kind of very new kind of an evaluation pattern. Assessment is to be done in a very sensitive, humane way in view of all the challenges which are at hand. Not only physical but also psychological, economic, and everything else. So with this, I stop, and I thank Sunita ji and everybody who organized this webinar and gave me the opportunity to speak and share some of the ideas. So if some questions are there, I'm ready to respond to it. Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you very much, sir. I mean,